Evaluate the following. And here we have some addition problems with fractions where we don't already have a common denominator. So we will have to find one. Let's start with 3/4 plus 1/3. To get a common denominator, we need to find a number that's a multiple of both of the denominators that we start with. In this case, those numbers are 4 and 3. So if we look at multiples of 4, those are 4, 8, 12, 16. Multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, etc. And we can see that 12 is the smallest number that's a multiple of both of these. We call this the LCD, the least common denominator. So what we want to do is rewrite the original fractions as equivalent fractions that have 12 as their denominator. Now we saw that when we were reducing fractions, we could divide the top and bottom by the same number. In this case, we're going to be multiplying the top and bottom by the same number. Let's look at this first one, 3/4. For 4 to become 12, it had to get multiplied by 3. So because we multiplied the denominator by 3, we also have to multiply the numerator by 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. Now let's look at 1/3. For 3 to become 12, it had to get multiplied by 4. So we'll also have to multiply the numerator by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So now what we've done is we've rewritten these fractions in their equivalent forms with 12 as the denominator. And once we have a common denominator, we can finish just like all the other problems we've done by keeping that common denominator in the bottom and adding the numerators in the top. 9 plus 4 is 13, so we get 13/12 in this case. Let's look at the next one, 2/5 plus 1/10. We need a denominator that's a multiple of both 5 and 10. If you look at multiples of 5, 10, 15, etc., we can see that 10 is a multiple of 5, and it's also a multiple of 10. And so that's going to be our least common denominator. All right. So now we need to figure out the new numerators. To get from 5 to 10, we multiplied by 2. So we're also going to have to multiply the numerator by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10. For the other fraction, because the denominator never changed, the numerator won't change either, and 1/10 is just going to stay 1/10. Now that we have a common denominator, we can add the numerators across. 4 plus 1 is 5. We keep the common denominator of 10, and we get 5/10. But you've probably noticed this can be reduced. They're both divisible by 5, and when we reduce by a factor of 5, we're left with our final answer of 1/2. All right, let's look at the next one. 5/6 plus 2/9. Here we need a denominator that's a multiple of both 6 and 9. If we look at multiples of 6, we get 6, 12, 18, 24. And we recognize that 18 is also a multiple of 9. So 18 is going to be our least common denominator. To get from 6 to 18, we had to multiply by 3. And so we also have to multiply the numerator by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And I'm actually going to stop writing these little multiplications down here, because right now, a single problem involves adding two fractions. But in the future, a single problem might involve 10 steps where one of those steps is adding two fractions. And we want to get to the point where we don't have to write out every little thing that we're doing. Right here where I'm writing out all of these multipliers, those are the training wheels. And in this problem, we're trying to take the training wheels off. So let's see if we can do that with the next fraction. To get from 9 to 18, we multiplied by 2. And so if we do the same to the numerator, 2 times 2 gives us 4. So our new fractions are 15/18 and 4/18. And when we add them together, 15 plus 4 is 19. So we get 19/18. Nice. I hope you're getting the hang of it. Let's do the last two. Here we've got 4/15 plus 2/5. We need a denominator that's a multiple of 15 and 5. Well, 15 is a multiple of 5, so that's going to be the LCD. 4/15 isn't going to change because the denominator stayed the same, the numerator also stays the same. It's 2/5 that we're going to have to change. 5 gets multiplied by 3 to get to 15. So if we multiply the numerator by 3 as well, 2 times 3 is 6. So we end up with 6/15 there. And now we can add the numerators across. 4 plus 6 is 10. So we get 10/15, which reduces to what? 2/3. They're both divisible by 5. Great. We've got one more. This one's slightly different, but it's not going to be any harder. 2/3 plus 5. 5 is not a fraction, but we can turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1, because dividing something by 1 doesn't change its value. So really quickly, we can take an integer and turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1, and then our rules for fractions apply. We need an LCD. In this case, it's going to be 3, because 3 is a multiple of itself, and it's also a multiple of 1. 2/3 is going to stay the same, but 5 over 1 is going to change. 1 had to get multiplied by something to get 3, and it's multiplied by 3. If we multiply the top by 3, 5 times 3 gives us 15. So we have 2/3 plus 15/3, which gives us 17/3, our final answer.